and myself are the city co-founders of Ladies That UX London, Ontario. And I'm very excited today for the fact that we're having this lightning talk here at Infotech Research Group. We have 5 awesome talks to share with you guys today. But I do have a couple of quick announcements that I want to share with you before we get started. So there are some thank yous that are in order. And then I'm going to talk to you about a bit about Ladies That UX, who we are, where we came from, how we got here, just for the people who are new to our group. Then we're going to open the floor up to Infotech, our sponsor. And then we're going to have our lightning talks. So first, a big thank you to Infotech Research Group for offering their wonderful space here today. And they've also put together this wonderful assortment of foods and drinks. So big thank you to them. And also, Melanie Holt is our photographer. She took some great pictures at our last meetup, and she's here today to take some more. So thank you so much, Melanie. I appreciate you sharing your time. And as always, thank you to you guys. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be able to have this group. The group is really built off our members. So thank you so much for taking the time to come. And anyone, just so you guys know, we have a live stream going on too, so anyone that's on there, thank you for being here. And I'd like to share this as well. We'd love to see our meetups from your perspective. So if we like to use the hashtag LTUXLDT. So please feel free to take pictures and share your experience online. And we've actually had, so we're a fairly relatively new group. This is our 4th meetup. So here's some pictures from each of the meetups past so far, and you can see we have different members sharing online. So our first meetup was really about trying to figure out what does this group mean to everyone? What do you want from the group? What topics do you want covered? What don't you want from the group? What type of format would you like? So that was what our first meetup was all around, and we also had a guest speaker come in from Deloitte, and she talked about what is critique. So then, after we gathered all that information, understanding what everyone wanted from this group, we came to understand that people wanted more talks about UX. There was like a variety of different formats that people wanted. So we decided we were going to test out, just like as a user experience researcher, test out different methods and see what felt good for everyone. So the second meetup that we had was around this idea of lean coffee. So it's just a really quick way to have like some meaningful conversation. So we got together, we broke out into small groups. We made a list of different things that we wanted to talk about. So each person had like 3 ideas. Then you have those ideas out. The group collectively has a chance to put down 2 votes. Then once you have everyone voted, now you've basically crowdsourced your agenda, what you guys want to talk about. Then you take the first one that was the most popular, put it into doing, talk about it, and you actually have a timer and you talk about it for about 10 minutes. If you guys are feeling good about it, you do a quick vote. Do you want to keep talking about it? No, like maybe or no. And then if you want to keep talking about it, you do. If you don't, you just move on to the next thing. And it was a really successful event. We had some great conversations from that. And then our last event was a panel discussion. We had 4 local women who are working in UX, design and communications, come out and share their personal stories with us. They talked about the different struggles that they've had and how they overcame them. They talked about personal successes they had and just shared a lot of great knowledge and experience with us to help us see, like, you know, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And so seeing these women succeed in this space that we're all really interested in was really, really great. And so if you weren't able to make it, we have this on our YouTube page. Feel free to come over to me or send me a message on our meetup page, and I'll send you the link because it is a private link. So Ladies That UX. Ladies That UX is actually an international meetup group. It was founded by Lizzie Dawson and Georgie Bottomley. And it was founded in 2013 in Manchester, UK. So Lizzie and Georgie worked together. And one night after working, they went out for some drinks and they were talking. And the discussion kind of went around how they realized they didn't really have any role models. They started to notice this gender imbalance within the UX industry. They didn't really have, they didn't really have seniors or women leaders to look up to. So they figured there must be women out there, let's find them. So that very night they went up and set up an Eventbrite page, sent the link out to people, and they had a great response. And it's only grown from there. There's 45 different Ladies That UX meetups worldwide, and there's some really exciting things here for London. So there's 2 meetup groups in Canada so far. The first was Vancouver, and London, Ontario was the very first in Ontario and the second in Canada. So hooray for us. Another thing that we found making sure it wasn't changing on me when I was pressing that, from the research that we found was that a lot of people wanted to make connections. And so these meetup groups, these meetings that we're having right now, that's a great way to connect with people. But we wanted to give you guys a space where you can connect offline as well. So we've set up a Slack group. You can sign up to it. We have a sign-up sheet over there, or just send me a message and we can hook you up with it. And I put this slide in here as well. So I'm really lucky. Because I'm an event organizer, I get to talk with Georgie and Lizzie, who started the group. And Georgie asked me to help her with this. So she has this 20-minute survey. It's 20 minutes! But you know what? It's really important. So right now, Ladies That UX has been being run for 3 years, and they don't really have a very good way of measuring the success of it. So if you've had a good experience or if you've had a poor experience, please take the time to fill it out so that that the ladies understand how they can improve and get better, and they really want to make a big impact. The whole reason for Ladies That UX is to bridge that gap, that gender imbalance. And so understanding from our members what the issues are is really important. So I've pinned it to our Twitter page, so if you want to go check that out and take some time to fill it out, I'd really, really appreciate it. And I know Georgie and Lizzie really would as well. So one last thing, we have another event coming up, and again, Infotech Research Group was kind enough to offer their space. It's a different meetup. It's going to be a workshop on teaching design sprints, how to facilitate them, how to go through them. So you can check that out. So now I'm going to open the floor up to Jesslyn, who's from Infotech Research Group. So she can say a few words.
Hi everyone, my name's Jesslyn and I'm a business analyst here at Infotech. First, we just wanted to thank everyone for attending our event. We're very happy to open our space up to more community events and especially to be part of the Tech Hub here in London. Thanks to Wanda and Jess for organizing all the delicious food you see here. And also, if anyone has questions about what we do here at Infotech or the product development that we do, feel free to talk to anyone of us who works here.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. So that's it. So as I mentioned, our main goal is to bridge that gap. And so today, having local women come up and talk about UX is a great way to help start bridging that gap. So now we can get started with Emily. That's the last. Is that it?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Emily.
No problem. All right, I was going to rely on my presenter's notes, but we'll be doing it. It's 5 minutes. I'm sure I can make it through. Okay, so today we're going to talk about StyleTiles. Has anyone ever used StyleTiles before in their design process or in the UX process at all? No? Okay, then they're going to get slower than they are. Exciting. Oh, there we go. Okay, so StyleTiles are a deliverable that help you and your stakeholders and product owners come up with a visual vocabulary of how you want your app to look from the beginning. It's like a very beginning process of your design process. And so it showcases things like your fonts and your colors and some textures and patterns and even some UI elements as well. And yeah, so like I said, it's a great way to kind of figure out what the goal is. There we go. Okay, so there are 4 distinct steps to StyleTiles, and the first is to listen. So your stakeholder actually knows what they want, and a lot of the times we come out of the gates thinking that we're the experts on the topic and we know exactly what we're going to do for them and stuff. But it's really important to step back and listen to what they have to say. And so it's your job to ask the right questions in order to elicit meaningful context. And so different types of questions you can ask is about their goals, their audience, what their business model is, and like what type of creative they like. If they really lean more towards like really minimalist or really like complex and dense type of things. And then the second step is to interpret. So you want to elicit meaningful context out of those questions that you've got. So what you tend to do is you extract verbs and adjectives out of the conversation that you had and transform those into design concepts. So if the audience is going to be primarily children, then you know that you might want to have like bright and poppy colors and big, easy to use interface and kind of like playful display types. And you can definitely try out a few different interpretations of these verbs and adjectives because like it is kind of a gut reaction to what you think like they might be looking for. And then you're going to want to define your visual language. So this is where you actually start making your StyleTiles. And there's a lot of templates you can get online if you just look up style guide templates. They have them for Sketch and Illustrator and Photoshop. And they all kind of follow the same format, which we'll get to in a couple of seconds when I show you examples. And the point of these is that they're really easy to make. They take like anywhere from like 15 minutes to an hour. And so you can make like multiple iterations of this and present this to your stakeholder instead of making like a really high fidelity polished mock-up. And so you'd want to use StyleTiles when like a high fidelity polished mock-up might just get thrown out someday or like really quickly because you completely miss the mark of like the aesthetic that they're looking for. And a mood board might be too vague. Like it's hard for them to interpret what you mean. They're like, well, this is an application with sell lemonade and you're showing me things for like data entry. Like I can't see the connection, but you're just trying to show them like the use of a parallax image or something. So it kind of like helps like narrow it down to their content without being too specific that you might get in a high-fidelity mock-up. And the last step is to iterate and iterate and iterate. So you present it to your stakeholder, maybe pick 2 or 3 that you really like just really like finesse them, make them great, maybe make like one high-fidelity mock-up out of it. You can pull elements out of one and put it into another, and definitely hold on to your old ones because if you feel that you've started to like deviate from your original vision, like you can keep referring back to them because a lot of the time you kind of like know like your gut can be right from the beginning. And so yeah, that'll just help you really like nail down your visual vocabulary. And so like visual vocabulary you'll see in just a second when I show you the words. But it's something you can keep referring to with your stakeholder and being like, right, so we're going for bright and poppy and like, does the elements that I'm designing reflect this? So here's an example of a style tile. I just got these off the website. They're concept created by Samantha Warren, and you can read more about it at styletile.es. I can post the link in the Slack channel too if anyone's interested, but there's tons of great resources and they're actually a really common pattern now in the design world, so you won't have any problem finding information on them. So StyleTiles always kind of follow like a similar format, but you'll have an example of your typography. So this has a header and a subheader. You have like a content header. It shows you a body paragraph, what that could look like, what a link could look like, a button. So it's like you see like tangible interface elements without getting like too specific. You have your possible color patterns. And then if you actually like look at the tile, it kind of looks like a page. So you have your header up at the top. You might like showcase their logo there. If you're making the logo, you might mock up a couple of different iterations of it. And then like there's a pattern bar, so you can show like background images that you might use. Like a little like screen grab of like a card maybe if you have like a body paragraph and like a user picture and stuff like that, and it's like a comment card, you could take a little screen cap of that to show like it actually in practice. And there's like a poll quote over there, so they've just taken a few little like design patterns and like put them together to show you what that could actually look like when you've taken it more high fidelity. And then, like I mentioned, you have your visual vocabulary. So in the bottom, most of them have a little wordle with your typography, so you can keep referring back to that and make sure that your design patterns are actually like matching up to the words that you guys decided were really important as adjectives and verbs for what you're doing. So here's another iteration of it. So they're like I said, quick to make. So a little bit different, different typography, a little bit more serious, a little bit more clean, and bright and airy. And here's another one. You have like bolder colored backgrounds and kind of like darker typography and some darker design patterns and a little bit more gradient effect and some background images. And in the end, you can see the actual like whole website put together, so you can see how like the style tile can translate into your high fidelity deliverable. And that's it.
Are there any questions for Emily?
Oh yeah. Anyone?
So is there an online platform to make these designs and everything for StyleTiles, or is just the way the process?
Well, it's kind of a process. Like there's specific questions that a lot of people ask. So if you actually go to the StyleTiles website, like she's listed out a link to different blog posts and websites where they show you like really good questions to ask your stakeholder. And then in the process of actually making the tiles, like I mentioned, like you can get sketch templates and Photoshop templates and stuff like that, so you can just like drop your own things into that. And then if not, like they're really easy to kind of throw together. And there's no hard and fast rules. Like it's just something that like, you can get more high fidelity than that if you need to, or you can make it more elusive. Like, really depends on how visual your client is and how much detail they need.
Any other questions?
So, is it just something used to style it up, or is there programming element to it?
You could. You'd probably, the next step out of making StyleTiles would be probably to create your asset library and your pattern library. So this is where you define all of your different buttons and your different states and all of your like H1 to H6 header elements and your paragraph text. Like you can create that in a living style guide type thing, and then that usually translates into your code. So, but it's just kind of like a jumping off point to like get the look and feel.
Are there any others? And so one of the great things about this is we're going to have a little break in between too. So Emily's right here. You can ask her more questions if you'd like after. So the next person that we have speaking is Sylvie. So we'll welcome her up. She's going to talk about creativity. Oh no, she doesn't need that.
Testing?
Sylvie's going with no slides.
Oh, no, no slides for me today. All right. As I give my talk, I want you to consider that creativity can be taught, and that you can fill your toolbox with different tools to help you be more productive. First of all, I want to start with a couple of quotes. Every child is an artist. The problem is staying an artist when you grow up. Pablo Picasso. Have no fear of perfection, you will never reach it. Salvador Dali, again, painter. Creativity isn't a switch that's flicked on or off. It's a way of seeing, engaging, and responding to the world around you. Rod Judkins, The Art of Creative Thinking. There is so much information out there. Obviously, I'll be touching on certain points tonight and just kind of a start off for everyone. I was lucky enough to be raised in a very creative household. Both my parents were extremely creative, and I was always allowed to follow any creativity I was interested in. I was drawing since I was a little kid. My mom said sometimes I would scribble on the walls when I could hold a pen or a crayon, and I was very lucky to be in very enriching family life. I was never told no. I was always told try, and it's okay to fail. Just keep trying and learn. One of the things in our household was humor, and music was king. Humor is kind of the backbone of my creativity. If I get stuck, it's either comedy or music that I will put on, let my brain let go for a while, and then go back and try to get the work done that I need to get done. People who try to get to know me a little better, I kind of give them the idea that I was brought up on Monty Python and the Muppets. If any of you know, it's very oddball comedy, and again, very much kind of the way I tend to think. My biggest breakthrough with creativity was when I graduated from VLR. I went to industrial design at Fanshawe College. It's a 3-year program, and one of the courses I took was creative problem solving. I could always be given a project, figure out how to do, but to actually generate ideas was not something originally was easy for me. After this course, we took it for 3 years. We learned different tools on how to be more creative, and I'm going to share some of those examples tonight. Every creative person fears the inability to create new ideas, whether it's an artist with a blank canvas or a writer with a blank sheet of paper. We all have been there. So how can we be more creative? First thing I would say is tolerate mistakes. No one who's ever designed or created or invented anything did it the first time around. You have to keep practicing and tolerate mistakes. Also, don't be afraid to fail. Again, trying different things. Now, when I was going over this at home with my family, what I was saying, and I said, don't be afraid to fail. And my husband said, yes, don't be afraid to fail, but if you're gonna fail, fail early. Another thing that helps me with my creativity was word association. For example, I designed a logo for Thorndale Revitalization Committee. And when I do logo design, what I usually do is I take a blank sheet of paper and I put down words that associate. So for me, it was the Thorndale, we have the White Creek, we have Thorndale Ivy, and lots of other terms that related to the community. From those words, I started developing in my mind visuals. For example, the Thorndale Ivy became a strong visual that came into my mind, as well as the White Creek. And eventually, those items actually became part of the logo. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I hadn't done that word association. And generally with logo design, that's kind of my default go-to. Another thing is called reverse thinking. Again, this is from the creative problem solving course that I took. One day in our class, our teacher said, okay, we're talking about packaging. What's bad about packaging? Oh boy, we filled out a whole board full of what's wrong with packaging. Is it, biodegradable? Is it plastic biodegradable? Is the process of the packaging itself bad for the environment? And so we came up with all these lists of things. And at the end, he said, okay, now we know what not to do. We know maybe there's new technologies in plastics where there is biodegradable plastic. Maybe the dyes themselves in the packaging are biodegradable. Maybe there are better manufacturing methods for the packaging that is better. So that's another way that you can approach a dilemma, is point out all of the negatives and then try to find ways around that and turn it around. Creative thinking has a very huge, broad term called lateral thinking. Brainstorming, very typical lateral thinking. So instead of going from A to B to C, very linear, lateral thinking sends you outward into different ideas until finally you start disseminating different ideas and coming up with a final solution in the end. One good way of doing this that I've used in the past, and actually heard at the Expo conference last week, was the 5 whys. So for example, if a company has a website and people aren't coming to their website, and they say, why? Well, I'm not getting traffic. Why? Well, maybe our SEO isn't done very well. Why? Well, we have no one in-house who really does that. Again, you just keep going with the whys, and sometimes that'll also help give you insight into certain aspects of the whole project that you might not have thought of before. And so why is another way of getting around. Now this has nothing really to do with the toolbox, but for me, as a creative person, this is very important, and that is keep moving. Be physically active. And I know myself, when I'm in front of the computer for too long, I breathe shallow. And so my cardiovascular starts to deteriorate. And if you don't keep moving and you don't exercise, it really does affect the endorphins that go through your body, even if it's just a walk, if it's just a swim, if it's just something that gets you away from what I like to say, get yourself in a different headspace. Clear your mind, and then get back to where you were. Another thing, getting out of your different headspace again, is the idea of going to meetups or meeting other people that have nothing to do with what you do. So, for example, I remember one time meeting people who were in the medical community, and another lady who was a yoga instructor. And I was just talking to them about what I do. And some of the insights that I got back from them, because they have no idea of my world. They have their world. And I would talk to them about some of the things I was working out. And a lot of times they would come up with really fresh ideas because they had a totally different perspective. So really try to reach out to other people who have nothing to do with what kind of work that you do. You might be really surprised as far as what they might give to you. There are so many tools out there. There are lots of websites and so on. But I hope this has been a little taste of certain tools that you can put in your own toolbox and help you be more creative. Thanks. Really quick.
Are there any questions for Sylvie?
Can you come up with something later? I'll be around.
Yeah. Thank you, Sylvie. That's great.
I'm Caryn. I am the senior product designer at Vehikl. We're in Waterloo. I need a mouse. Where's the clicky thing?
you'll never see us.
Or just go through them all. That's cool.
It's left to the board and then
Sweet. Perfect. All right. So I'm going to talk today about dev and design pairing, but this can be applied across the board with pairing. So for those of you who don't know, pairing is working side by side with some amount of agility with someone who is from a different discipline or could be from the same discipline. The idea is you're just working with someone else so that you can bounce ideas off of them, they can hold you in check, you come up with better ideas, you forget a semicolon, that type of stuff. If anyone isn't aware of what pair programming is, there are some great books out there who are written by people much, much smarter than me. Wow, this is weird. This is an odd angle. So the main benefit for a designer with pairing is, at its basic core, keeping your design in check. If you're pairing with a developer, the very first thing they're going to tell you the second you start designing something is whether or not you can even do it. Are you designing something that is completely impossible in a development environment? And it also depends on the language that you're working with and all sorts of things like this. But they're going to keep you in check. Most developers that you're going to work with are not going to sit there like cuddling you and holding your hand and being like, oh honey, that's just not quite. They're going to be like, no, that's bullshit. Like, sorry, you can't, so don't. And this is, as much as that's a little bit difficult for a lot of designers to handle, because a lot of us, we really like the things we design, they're beautiful and you don't know, like, you should just make it work. It's actually pretty legitimate to have someone sitting there with you teaching you these things, because it helps your designs in the future. Like, it helps you design better things, it helps you design stuff that you can hand off to a client and be pretty confident that when they're like, yeah, let's do it, you're not gonna have to be like, okay, now, like, you have to build it, good luck, because you'll make enemies that way. It's not good. One of the primary reasons this works so well for you as a designer is you can start building out conventions. Conventions are things you can hand off to other designers, you can hand off to developers, you can hand back to the client if they're working in-house with your stuff later. Things like naming conventions, file structure. You're talking things like even language. Are you learning things in a domain that are specific to that domain? Are you learning legal terms? Are you learning business terms? These things should be in your designs when you put them in certain places. So you start building these conventions which really help your designs, and it makes you look a lot more proficient in what you're doing. So you're not just designing things for likes on Dribble, which are nice, but not practical. So that kind of leads itself into efficient processes around working with a developer is something that you sort of have to work into as far as getting a developer to think in terms of how to visualize, how to structure what they're building, but also how to visualize how to structure what you're building. So if you get a developer and a designer in a room in front of a whiteboard, or however you happen to brainstorm, and you start talking about a flow through an application or a website, the developer is going to be thinking database. And the designer is going to be sitting there thinking, but what about the button? What happens when I click on the button? Like, is it a material design and it ripples out from the side? Like, they're going to be thinking totally different things. But what's cool is you come to this middle ground and you start covering things that the other person wouldn't have thought about. So thinking about the database or thinking about validation from a developer's point of view, suddenly the designer is put in check and they have to think about, okay, you're right, what if they fill out this form and you have an error? What does the error actually look like? What does the user see? How does that validation actually work? You start thinking about the other side from a practical point of view, and not necessarily like, what do you mean I have to learn PHP? That's terrifying. No, you don't have to worry about it. There's terms that you can learn and there's concepts that you can wrap your head around that will help your design. Designing intuitively is something that's kind of a vague term and sounds more fancy than it actually is. It's really thinking about everything that you're doing from a practical point of view. We're an agile shop, so we tend to actually work pretty agile. We deliver an MVP, but it doesn't look like shit. So basically what we do is we design something. Did I click forward? I totally did. Basically what you're designing is something that you can hand off that actually makes sense to the client, to a developer, to another designer, to their in-house team, to someone remote, to someone local. You can hand it off and everything that you've designed actually makes sense. And you know that it makes sense because you worked with a developer to actually design these things. And what this results in is world peace. Basically what you're doing is you're working with someone else to develop this united front. You're speaking the same language, you're designing the same product, you're not handing it off to someone with some vague idea that you might be communicating most of the ideas and hopefully they actually developed it the right way and maybe they followed your plans. You did it together. So you know it was done well. You know that the things that you designed actually made sense for the developer. They know that you designed things that a developer would look at and be like, thank you for not delivering me something terrible that I can't work with. Basically, you're just designing something that you can actually hand off and feel okay about, and you're not ducking behind some, fridge somewhere hoping that a developer doesn't find you. And that's basically it. Work with someone else, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a developer. Work with someone who is a biz dev. Work with someone who's in accounting or someone. Work with someone else even just to rubber duck. And if you don't know what rubber ducking is, look it up because it's fantastic. You should all be doing it. It's great. It's the idea that you're just talking about what you're doing so that you can think out loud about what the problems are that you're dealing with, or even just coming up with cool ideas. And that's it, really. It's work with somebody else. Don't work in a silo. And feel okay working with devs because they know some cool shit, and you should know some cool shit. That's it.
All right.
Questions? No? I'll be around.
Okay, guys, so we'll have a 15-minute break, and then we're going to get started with Donna, and we'll also see, even though Ashley's not here, she's somehow going to present to you guys. So I was really excited, and I gave that whole spooky thing about Ashley going to give a presentation. She is in Winnipeg right now, and she made this wonderful 10-minute presentation about design sprints. Unfortunately, the audio doesn't work, so we're going to re-record it and then post it on our social media and on our Slack channel and everything. She did send me a different video that we can play in place of it, and we might do that, but we'll see. We'll see how the night goes. And so we still have one more talk from someone that's here live, and that's Donna Todd. And so Donna's going to talk to us today about some activities that she did when she was at the Detroit Ladies at LUX Group, as well as Sylvie reads books.
Hi. So just to kind of give you a little bit of a history, I am a freelance graphic designer trying to get into UX. So kind of know some things, don't know a lot. So I'm learning as everybody else is learning. But I wanted to talk about the Detroit group because I'm also originally from Missouri. So going across the border, going to Detroit does not scare me. So what had actually happened is a few months ago, I had talked to a few people who are in the tech industry and was saying, I've been in the print industry for about 25 years and I still have clients, but I want to make the move into the more, web and app kind of situation. And they had suggested maybe I should look into UX. And I said, I don't even know what that is. So I started looking, and funny enough, Ladies That UX in Detroit has been going, obviously, for a longer period of time. If you'll notice, they were founded in 2014. And they'd had, up to this point, they've had 19 meetups. So a few months ago, I decided, hey, I'll go check this out. And I started going to some of their meetups and thought, this is really interesting. And coincidentally, about a week or so after that, the London group started up. And I was like, that was meant to be. So I wanted to kind of talk about just some of the things that they've done, not that we have to do the same thing, just as suggestions, and also to give an open invitation. I quite often will go to the Detroit meetups, and there's also a couple of other groups that I will go over and check out whatever they're doing. So if anybody's interested, you can always sign up for the meetups. You don't have to go, obviously, because you can tell from even the one here in London. But if something looks interesting in Detroit, give me a holler. Maybe, carpool. Something along those lines. So I'm always open to those kinds of things. And like I said, I'm not scared of Detroit. So, or driving in Detroit or the traffic in Michigan, even though it's insane. So this one, the last one that I actually went to was called Sketches Against Humanity. Quite rude. And I know there was a note, and I'm glad to see that everybody stuck around because and nobody ran away from the idea that this is going to be a little rude. I do want to add one other thing too. Well, actually, I'll talk about it at the end after we get to that point. But so, Sketches Against Humanity. This is how you play. We actually had 9 people show up, even though I think they had 23 who said they would be there. About 9 showed up. So about half. That's usually how it goes. We divided up into 2 groups, and we had a stack of Cards Against Humanity. Has everybody played or have some idea of what? Okay, a lot of nods, a couple of shaking their heads. Okay. Cards Against Humanity. What's the best way to say it? There's questions. It's kind of like Mad Lib. Does that make sense? Where it's like a sentence and words are left out. So it might be, I drive a blank car as I go to blank. And then the way the game normally plays is you have answers, and those answers are rude. Very rude. Completely inappropriate. So anything that you can think of, unfortunately, sexually, racially, politically, pretty much anything that you can think of in a sense of that is completely politically incorrect, that's an answer on the card. And so you turn over your card, like for your answer, I drive my blue balls to, right, whatever. Get the point? So there'll be cards and you fill in the blanks and then you get points according to that. So this was different. This was Sketches Against Humanity. So what we did is we took the cards that were the answers, and everyone had a chance of selecting 5 cards. They were face down. So the deck was face down. You picked 5 cards, and of those 5 cards, you picked the card that you wanted everyone else to sketch. Okay? And the person who picked the card then did not watch while everybody else sketched. And then whenever everyone was done doing their quick sketch, and that was with a marker, so you couldn't erase anything, and this was quick, then whoever had the funniest or most appropriate or inappropriate or however you want to call it, the person who had the card then got to choose who won that round. And we would continue to play, and each person got a chance to pick 5 cards and then tell everybody else what they had to draw. Until someone had won 5 cards. Because you kept the card, if you won it, then you got to keep that particular card. That was your point. Or until time ran out. So we just got tired. Or a few of them drunk. There was a lot of drinking going on too. So anyway, I brought a couple of samples. Brace yourselves. Okay, so I've blurred out the card at the top. This is a mild one. Now, I have to explain a little bit. Clearly, somebody is getting a philosophy degree. Somebody else here has a bunch of kids. Top right-hand corner. Personally, I thought it was a syringe, but it was actually supposed to be a drink of some kind. A martini, that's supposed to be a beer, versus money, a ribbon, and smile. This one actually had to do with the conversation that we had a little bit earlier on, and I think she'd been drinking quite a bit by this point. But anyway, beside the point. Guitar, this is supposed to be a singer, and just so that you know, across the top, that's a Rolling Stone, right? So the card was, any guesses? It's obviously 3 words, because they're blurred out. Take a stab at it. So obviously, very good. That was it. This is Keith Richards, is who she was trying to portray. He had done everything, right? All right, you're good at the game. Now a little bit harder. Yeah. Honestly, the first time I saw this one, at the top, I thought those were eyeballs. They're not eyeballs. Anybody want to take a guess? It's 3 words.
German dungeon porn.
You got it. German dungeon porn. Right? You've played the game before, haven't you?
Look at his hat.
Yeah.
You can tell.
Does it make sense now? Yeah. All right. Well, the one at the top told me that anything, like if you see a floating penis, you should be scared of whatever anyway, right? Because that's just weird. It's just floating there. 2 words. Yes. Yeah. That one won at the top on the left. I mean, top left. And then this one, I didn't keep the card. This one, I just love this guy.
Oh my God.
He's confident, right? I mean, because if you can hit a ball like that, you'd walk around with that look on your face all the time anyway. Anyway, so clearly that is a fun night, right? So I'm all for thinking that if anybody has, obviously there's quite a few people here laughing, so clearly they have the cards somewhere. So maybe that's one of our things later on that we can try to do. You know? So now I'm going to go to a different topic that's similar. The other thing that I attended in Detroit recently is a movie that's called Code, Debugging the Gender Gap. Now, I don't know, from talking to a few of you, like during the breaks and stuff, I don't know if everybody realizes that a couple of years ago, Detroit was broke, like bankrupt. Does everybody know that? Like, bankrupt. And in the last 2 years, they have done such extraordinary things in the technologies. The 3 main car companies have poured huge amounts of resources, and also the city itself has redesignated different monies that were supposed to go to other things to really, really improve the city. They have cleaned it up. They have workshops all the time, and their big push is for women in technology, because they say it's an untapped resource that really, really needs to be a part of, you know, the developing environment. And so one of the things that they did is they had several groups who came together to watch this movie, and this movie is specifically about women and girls in technology and the push for that. It's inspirational, it is heartbreaking, and it's inspirational. But there's some things that, you know, the women talk about, the things that they've had to go through to get to where they are, and just different things. So I guess we've got some time, I'd like to show you a trailer of it, so we'll have to kind of look it up on YouTube. And what we're trying to do is, I had said to Kathleen, I was just so inspired by this movie. The thing is that to show the movie, you have to pay the rights.
No.
You have to look up code debugging the debugging the gender gap. Go down a couple. There you go. Up. There you go. I know the trailer was on there.
The first one. Yeah.
I don't think that's the.
This is teaser. Isn't it trailer?
No. There's one that is. This may be. Yeah. Oh wait. If you hang on a second, I do have a speed.
Imagine someone sort of sitting at a keyboard typing all day. They don't realize how much design and creativity goes into.
Thank you so much.
If you look at Twitter's user base, it reflects basically all of humanity.
There's no doubt in my mind that technology jobs are critical to every part of the economy, every part of the way we live, the way we work.
If we are somehow subtly or systemically excluding women, we are really cutting down on the size of the workforce.
Computer science is changing our whole world. Unfortunately, it's a very undiverse field. It's actually quite segregated. This is both a gender as well as an ethnicity issue. It's when the idea of the nerd genius came to the fore, and that's exactly when women started declining in their representation.
We imagine someone sort of sitting at a keyboard typing all day. We don't realize how much design and creativity goes into making software.
You don't have to be antisocial. You don't have to want to not sleep. You don't have to want to spend all of your time with a computer. You don't have to be male.
I think people are sometimes surprised when I tell them I work in computer science, just because it is a male-dominated industry.
As someone who studied rocket science, I can tell you that coding is not rocket science.
Writing software is just a tool to actually go build something cool that you want to build.
To be able to just build a product from the ground up, to make something exist where it didn't exist before, has been really exciting.
There's like so many like programs and websites now where you can just like teach yourself.
It's actually a really important thing for us as a company to establish having women on the team. The greater the empathy you have with the people that are trying to use the product, the better the product is.
I absolutely think that women can be just as great as men at programming. And the great thing is I can look the way I do, I can wear lipstick and write just as good code as you, and people need to be comfortable with that.
At conferences, there's been sexually explicit comments made towards speakers, towards attendance. It's gross. It's despicable.
We're not seen as part of the Wyss Club.
There's this assumption there like that I brought the coffee.
People would assume I was a recruiter or talked out to me. I can't think of a single software product that would only be used by men. So it's hard to imagine that it would be appropriate to have any team that was only men or only women for that matter.
Important mantra is you are not your user.
Unfortunately, the first round of airbags killed a lot of women and children. And it turns out that the airbags were developed for the average specs of the engineer on the team. and those engineers happen to all be white men.
You have to be impatient. You have to say, this has to happen now. We have to do what we can now. Whatever it takes to move the number now, we have to do that now.
So, anyway, you might want to. There we go. So, obviously, I was inspired by the movie. Obviously, those were little snippets of what was going on, right? The issue is that, like what I was saying, is that you have to pay for the rights to be able to show it. So, when I had spoken to the people who had sponsored the one in Detroit, they told me that it is $500 for 140 people or less, and that's US. And beyond that, it's $1,000 if you have like twice that amount or whatever. So as long as you are below 140, it's 500. Above that, it's 1,000 or whatever that you deal with. And when you think about that, you think, oh my gosh, that's a lot of money. But if we can get some sponsors who would put in a little bit of money, we put their logos up, or even if you think that we can get 100 people or 120, if everybody pays $5 Canadian, that would actually take care of it. Wow. You know, so again, if we can get enough people to do this for free, I think that's great. I've been talking to some of the other women groups, and that's the other thing that I would also suggest. I know some of the other speakers, you know, Sylvie and, sorry, who else said it? Chris? Or Caryn, sorry. For some reason, sorry. I thought Chris. So the thing is that making connections, getting into some of the other groups, because there is another women's group that you have to pay to get into, which is called WCT.
No, Women Communication Technology, you do not have to be a member to attend.
No, right. You don't have to be a member to attend, but there are some member-only events that are coming up. So you,
but that'll be probably the only one this year.
Yeah. So, but there's a lot to do, and there's usually a price difference in if you want to go to the event, if you don't want to go to the, I mean, if you want to go to the event and you're a member or a non-member, it might be $2 or $3 or $5 difference to go to the event, but it's definitely worth checking out. You just sign up on their Facebook page and then you start getting all of their information and that kind of thing, and it's really good. And also, I keep mentioning this too, the UX Book Club. That's also something worth definitely being a part of. It kind of gives you a chance to talk to other people and also learn as you go, because that's what we talk about is the books that, you know, are kind of the required reading. So look on meetups, look online and find other groups and network and meet people and get out there and, you know, learn things. So hopefully if we can get some groups involved enough, we can actually maybe do this for free. If everybody's, you know, if there's enough people interested. So maybe, I don't know, a survey at some point or something?
Set up an Eventbrite account.
And then just see how many people.
Get all these other women's groups that you're talking about. And maybe not even just the women's group, but like technology groups.
Right.
So they can share the link to it and we'll be able to get
a better idea.
Yeah, a better idea, and we're bringing more people together to get that big number so we can pay it.
I was actually at an LEDC event earlier today, and they were talking about trends in technology and telecommunications and media, and they were also talking about the lack of diversity. And I'm wondering if you might be able to get some sponsorship from LEDC as well.
That sounds good. Yeah, great. Yeah, see, and again, this is where everybody starts talking and people start coming up with ideas. I think we could bring this to London. Really, I think we can. So anyway, that's that part. Does anybody have any questions about the Detroit meetups or? Okay, don't ask me about the drawings. I mean, really. I think they were self-explanatory.
So were you just saying that is a possibility of bringing that documentary to London?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that it's $500 if you have 140 people.
You can do that.
Yeah. So if it goes beyond 140 people, then it goes up to $1,000. So again, we have to know how many people, and you know, like with them, they had sponsors. Nobody paid anything that came and saw it. they had sponsors, and then what they did is before they showed the movie, they just had a screen that showed all the sponsors and basically said thanks to them because they were the ones that contributed so that it could be shown. Yeah, so I'm sure we can come up with something, but anyway. Any other questions about that before I move on to the other thing? Okay, so while I was at one of the Detroit meetings, I was talking about how, because it's a 2.5 hour drive, depending on where they have their meetups, a lot of times I kill two birds with one stone. I will actually buy the book for the UX book club and then listen to it on my way to Detroit. Now, it's a little tricky when you're doing something along those lines. So I'm going to show you how to do that you can actually have Siri read a book to you. Okay? And maybe it's something that you won't use. You know, sorry. This part may be boring. But if not, here's the idea I want to give you. Always kind of look for things that you can do a life hack to. Because you never know, hey, if you don't think about things as only being able to use them one way. Again, it goes back to the creativity. You know, just say, oh, wait, I could actually do this or that. So, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to plug. I have to actually be back here. I'm going to plug my iPad. I'm kind of wondering how this was going to be set up. So, should be able to show it on the screen what I'm doing. And then later, what I'll do is just press sound. Oh, sorry. I'll put the steps online so that everybody can see it. So let's hope this works. And you know it's technology, so it probably won't work the first time.
than $50 each. Today, Star Wars Day. So are you kids in the city raised, I don't know, like $7,000 in a couple of weeks to take a bunch of kids to movies. So I can't imagine.
Like, I remember reading a like the first floor, like in front of the State Street. Yeah. I know exactly where it's from. Yeah.
That's actually my spot right above, right where that logo is. Yeah. Alright, so I could watch all day.
Those settings first,
And they just offer that.
right?
Because they want.
And then you can actually do this on an iPad or you can do it on an iPhone. Now, the thing is, if you do it on an iPhone, it's a little trickier. I'm trying to practice the other day on the iPhone, and of course, once I turn this on, if the sound works, you have to realize that the voice will tell you what to do. You just have to be patient, and I'm not patient. I kept trying to do it, and he kept trying to tell me, and I kept screaming, shut up at it, and then I had to turn it down. So what you do is you go to accessibility, and at the very top, it's called voiceover. Has anybody ever checked this out before? Yeah. So when you turn this on, okay, so this is how it works.
Double tap to toggle setting.
So what ends up happening is, it's not showing it yet, but you see where it is. Okay. Do you see where it's saying the speak rate? All right, so you see where it's got the turtle and the hare, right? A rabbit. Yeah.
33%.
Yeah.
Adjustable.
So it's obviously
Slide
adjustable.
up or down with one finger to adjust the value.
So you have to slide with one finger up or down to adjust the speed.
Speaking rate. Speaking rate. Heading.
So you literally have to use one finger, which is I was driving me crazy.
33%.
Let me show you.
Adjustable.
This is where it's like moment shut up.
Slide up or down with one finger to adjust the value. Speaking rate. Speaking rate. Speaking rate. 33%. Speaking rate. Speaking rate. Speaking rate. 43%. Speaking rate.
Do you hear the difference? Do you hear it? So the difference is, so of course what you can do.
Speaking rate. 53%.
Right? You can have a
speaking
rate, right?
53%. Speaking rate. 63%.
But why are you doing
That's why.
I know it's
Okay, so you can like, well, I didn't think you could. So clearly you can before the crazy lady starts talking, right? So I usually adjust it between 35, 40, something along those lines, only because I'm listening, like I said, I'm listening to it while I'm on the road or I'm at the office or whatever, right? So here's the worst thing about it, the best and worst, is that you cannot use the same strokes or the same, you can't use it the same way you would anything else. So you have to know what those actual things are. So for everything, so I'm going to turn it back on.
Voiceover on. Settings.
I'm going to turn it down a little bit because that's kind of crazy loud. And then for you to go to anything, so I'm going to press the home button. Oh.
Double tap to open.
Okay. So to, oh, it's not, I don't know how it's on here, screen's not working.
Hidden menus above the map.
That's all right. It's going to be a picture of you again. Oh, there we go. It loves that. There we go. Okay, so I'm back to the home screen. To move across, I have to use 3 fingers to swipe across. Okay? And, which is kind of annoying because it's like, oh my gosh, that's something new. And then you have to select something. Now stop playing it. And then you have to tap it twice for it to actually come up. Why is it not pressing? Can't wait for that.
21. The future. Wow, this is boring.
And then do you
21. The future. Wow, this is boring one day. I hope you think this book is utterly boring. Passe. And that you hear about the idea of screenless solutions and yawn. The best interface is no interface? Wake me up when you have something interesting to say. Because if that day comes, remember to celebrate. You'll be living in a better time. Drowning in screens with intentionally addictive interfaces that distract us from one another, but one in which typical processes are embraced. When computers serve us, instead of us serving them.
Okay, so clearly, right? Now, you have to give it some leniencies. Obviously. Or it plays music. That's mine. It automatically went to my music. That answers it right there. So, it doesn't understand headings, right? It thinks it's just, it doesn't understand that that's not a sentence because there's no period at the end. So it will read a heading and I'll be like, what? Oh, we've gone to another chapter. Okay. And as you will be able to tell, you could tell from it, it just reads it. And some words it gets and some words it doesn't. And it didn't get living because living was split. It went livine, right? So it thought, oh, that's how I say it. And then the questions are always funny because it's a question, she states the question. This is a question, isn't it? Right, so would I listen to a fiction book? No. But if all I'm getting is instructions and information and I'm trying to kind of get stuff from it, I will set this up and then I'll listen to a book on my way to Detroit. Again, you have to know before you get on the road, you have to set it up, you have to get it in place. Technology is always a freak show. And you have to realize that you can turn it off, to pause it, and then for it to pick back up. But it will literally go from one page to the next page to the next page, and it reads the entire book, and it will even get to the index, and you have to kind of stop it because it's still reading the index, right? So, and the other thing is that it has weird little quirks that because it's Siri, that, like let's say it's a subhead, and in that subhead, it might be all in caps, and it says, I can't believe it is so boring, and it will say, I can't believe IT is so boring. Because when it sees IT in caps, it reads IT. Yeah. because that's how they've programmed it. So, like I said, a little bit of leniencies on certain words or things, and sometimes I have to kind of pause it and go, what was that word? Or obviously I don't do that when I'm driving, but you know, it's on your iPhone and you can listen to books or take a walk or have your you know, whatever. So just want to let everybody know. Sure. Oh, you have a question?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Where do you like go to find out more about this reading club?
The UX
reading club.
Oh, the UX Reading Club. It's a meetup group. It's a meetup group. So just look on the meetups. And somebody else was telling me there's a front-end developer group, and and there's also, I think there's some PHP and something else. There's quite a few groups that are worth looking into. And then,
There's
like I said,
CMS-specific groups too.
yeah, and also the
There's London Duck, which is super cool.
yeah. So I think, I mean, we should just have a list of, like, maybe on our meetup thing, just if you know of groups that other people should be interested in or involved with.
Groups come from on the Tech Alliance site.
Yeah,
a fair
it's a lot
amount
of
of
group too,
groups
yeah.
as well that we can.
Any other questions?
There's another Slack channel too called Dev London. So if you go to devldn.ca, you can add yourself to the Slack channel that way.
Huh,
That's
cool.
a really great. Yeah, it's a really good resource for anyone to talk.
Tech Vibes is another good one I found. It's from Vancouver, but they've got a London site.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Tech Vibes.
That sounds good. All right. Any other questions? Sorry.
Do you know if any of the resource books are on Audible?
On Audible. I don't know of any particular ones. All the ones that I've bought were for the Kindle, and they were just like, because I knew I was going to either listen to them or actually sit and read them. But I'm sure there's got to be. And the thing too is to keep in mind with if you go to Amazon, obviously Amazon.com and Amazon.ca, there are books that are free or that are really cheap. That are, you know, anything from different programs, books to UX to, you know. I know there's one. Anyway, I'll put some links on some of these, but a lot of the books that we've been reading for the UX Book Club, most of them are around $10 for the book, if you get it on Kindle. So, anybody else?
I think you can also get audiobooks from the London Library too. So that's
Yeah.
something we're checking.
The only thing is with the London Library, on their technical books, they've got such few. It's not a great, not as big a selection
Yeah,
as
but
some of
they've
the
got,
others.
again, if you don't know, they've got lynda.com subscription for 1 year. And they're seeing how many people are utilizing that lynda.com within a year. If we're not utilizing it, they're not going to renew their subscription for free. So any lynda.com programs or courses that you want to learn, it's available through the London Library. So please utilize it.
And that's usually $25 a month. So it's a huge savings to be able to get it. And tell your friends, even if there's somebody that's not into technology, there's business and there's photography and there's art, there's book writing, there's all kinds of stuff on lynda.com. It's a great one.
There's another really good resource here, UXDesign.cc. They've curated all UX tools, UX books, methods, events that are global events and stuff like that. So that's another resource we want to check out. But I think we're at time. So thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. It was great to hear from members of the group on their different thoughts on UX and different life hacks and stuff like that. It was really interesting. Our next event is June 11th. It's the workshop. So if you're interested, please. If you can, please RSVP to it, or if you want to learn more, I'm going to post, Ashley put together a presentation, so I'll post that on our Slack page. And I want to give another big thank you to Infotech Research Group for giving us this great space and this wonderful food and drinks. So thank you so much to the team. If you're okay with it, Melanie's asked that we have like a group shot with the speakers, and then afterwards, like have a shot with the speakers, and then have the group come together and take a picture as well. So if you're willing to do that, please stick around and we'll have the picture. And then otherwise, you know the old saying, you don't have to go home.
But you can't do it. But you have to.
So how would you like this to be set?
I'm so sorry, but you're not mom. Just ask me.
Get you a little closer and a little more this way because I'm going to grab this.
Ready?
The website